The signal came in on a frequency we hadn't used in 11,000 years. Not because we'd forgotten it, we kept the receiver tuned to it the way you keep a scar, not out of sentiment, but because scars are useful. They remind you what the skin is capable of surviving. I was running the morning calibration cycle at Kelhari Interior Station when the console lit. Not an alarm, not a threat tone. The Vethon claims sovereign frequency carries a specific modulation, a long bureaucratic preamble, the way their authority always announced itself. Patient, entitled, the sound of something that had never once been told no. I let it finish before I answered. The preamble ran for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. It identified the fleet, 9 vessels of the claimed Sovereign Reinstatement Authority, chartered under the Vethon Biological Reserve Compact of the Third Accord. It identified the asset, Sol System, Kelhari Continental Reserve, Catalog Entry 7 Solon Veth, biological and territorial holdings classified as dormant reserve pending reinstatement. It identified the purpose, formal reinstatement of Vethon ownership over all biological derivatives and territorial holdings within the cataloged boundary. Then it asked for the reserve's administrative custodian to confirm receipt. I confirmed receipt. My name is Soren Vale. I have been the records keeper at Kelhari Interior Station for 31 years. My predecessor held the post for 44, hers before her for 38. The station has been continuously staffed for 112,000 years. The filing system we maintain, the counter-occupancy returns submitted quarterly to the Vethon Biological Reserve Compact's own administrative registry, runs back 540,000 years without a single missed quarter. We had a word for what the Vethon were attempting. We called it a reinstatement claim. They had a longer phrase for it. What it meant, in plain language, was this: you left something behind, you forgot about it, and now you want it back. We had been ready for this particular conversation for 8,000 years. The legal compact was drafted in my predecessor's time. The counterfiling had been prepared, indexed, and cross-referenced against every provision of the Third Accord. We had a team of 400 specialists in Vethon administrative law on retainer. We had 3 generations of legal archivists who had spent their careers doing nothing but anticipating the exact arguments the claimed sovereign authority would make. I invited Advocate Executor Merev Soth aboard. She was tall. They are always tall. The Vethon build for height the way we build for endurance, because height in their biology signals administrative rank, and rank is the only currency their civilization has ever truly valued. She wore the gray and silver filing robes of the Reinstatement Authority. She carried a data core the size of my fist, containing, presumably, 540,000 years of dormancy documentation. I met her at the station's surface reception bay, and I walked her outside. That was the first thing. I walked her outside. Kelhari Interior Station sits at the center of what the Vethon's catalog called a biological reserve boundary, a plane they had mapped, tagged, and left 540,000 years ago as a managed dormant zone. The catalog entry noted sparse pre-stellar biological activity, minimal infrastructure, no evidence of organized development. They had rated it a low-priority asset. They had not come back. What Advocate Executor Merev Soth saw when I walked her outside was not a plane. The city runs for 480 kilometers in every direction from the station. I have lived here for 31 years, and I still cannot see the edge of it from any surface vantage point. The towers in the inner district reach 11 kilometers. The mid-district platforms are stacked, residential, industrial, transit, agricultural, layered the way geology layers, each stratum built on the foundation of the one beneath it. Some of those foundations older than anything the Vethon had been doing when they filed their last dormancy report. The sky above the city carries 4 transit rings, visible from the surface as bright lines crossing the blue. 41 kilometers above us, the orbital platform Kelhari Veth hangs in its station-keeping burn, one of 103 such platforms distributed across the system. She looked at it for a long time. I gave her that. She had come a long way. Then I walked her inside and I sat her down and I opened the counterfiling archive. 540,000 years of quarterly returns. Everyone submitted to the Vethon Biological Reserve Compact's own administrative registry, on the Compact's own forms, in the compact's own filing format, under the compact's own charter provision, Section 7, subsection VETH, Clause 14, which specifies that any biological or territorial holding classified as dormant reserve is subject to reinstatement claim unless continuous occupancy by a recognized developmental entity has been demonstrated through unbroken administrative filing for the full period of dormancy. Unbroken. We had not broken it. Not once in 540,000 years. Not during the Keth atmospheric event that drove the first shelter networks underground. Not during the 3,000-year surface recovery. Not during the expansion periods, the long quiet centuries, the years when the filing felt like a ritual no one believed would ever matter. Every quarter, the return went out. Every quarter, the registry received it. Every quarter, the counter-occupancy clock ran. She went through the archive for 6 hours. I brought her water. I answered her questions. I did not gloat. There is nothing to gloat about. They had left, we had endured. The law had been followed. That is all. Gloating implies surprise, and we had not been surprised for 8,000 years. At the end of the 6th hour, she asked me who had authorized the original filing protocol. I told her the name, a woman called Darren Voss, station archivist, 11,000 years dead. She had read the Third Accord in full and found the clause and brought it to the Planetary Council and argued for 3 years before anyone agreed it was worth the administrative effort. Then she had set up the filing system and trained the first succession of keepers and written the protocol document that still governs how we submit the returns. Darren Voss had never seen a Vethon vessel. She had only read about them. She had filed the first return into a registry that had no active administrator on the receiving end. The compact's offices were unmanned, their systems running on automated receipt. She had sent a legal document into a void and trusted that it would matter, someday, to someone. It mattered today. Advocate Executor, Marav Soth, closed the archive. She sat with her hands flat on the table for a moment. Then she asked what terms we required for a formal resolution. I slid the compact across. It had been prepared 8,000 years ago. It covered 4 provisions: formal recognition of Sol system sovereignty under the Developmental Entity Clause, transfer of all dormancy documentation to the Earth Archive, navigational rights through the Kelhari Approach Corridor, and a formal administrative withdrawal of Catalog Entry 7 Do from Solon, VETH from the Reinstatement Authority's active docket. She read it. She asked 2 questions, both procedural. I answered them. She signed. I countersigned, added the station's administrative seal, and transmitted the executed compact to the Planetary Registry, the Orbital Platform Network, and, on the Vethamon's own administrative frequency, to the Reinstatement Authority's fleet in high orbit. The fleet departed Sol system 4 hours later. I watched them go on the long-range display. 9 vessels, moving in formation, shrinking to points, gone. The orbital grid logged their transit and returned to its regular cycle. The transit rings kept their burns. The city outside kept its noise. I filed the closure report. Then I went back to the morning calibration cycle I had abandoned when the signal came in. The instruments needed checking. The atmospheric sampler on the north array had been reading 2 points low for a week, and I hadn't had time to pull it and clean the intake. I pulled it, I cleaned it, the reading corrected. Outside, the city ran to every horizon. Above it, 103 platforms held their burns. In the archive room down the corridor, 540,000 years of quarterly returns sat in their index. Every one of them a letter from someone who had never stopped believing the answer would eventually come. They had waited for it, the way we wait for everything that matters, without missing a quarter.